find a comfortable seated position. Sometimes I sit up on a blanket or two. Sitting up on a blanket or two that are stacked. So if you have a blanket or a pillow, you can kind of decide how much height you might be more comfortable with, whether you have one blanket or two or none. And that might start to change for you as you go through the practice, how you use your blocks, your blankets. If you don't have blocks and blankets, you know, you may have some nice fluffy towels lying around the home, or sheets, or books, like maybe a dictionary or two. I don't know if you still have one of those around the house. And these are pretty reasonable. You can get them very easily just about anywhere these days. If you're having trouble finding some of these types of props that you want, just shoot me an email or give me a call, text me, and I have some ideas for you. So I'm starting with 3 blankets. Typically I would have a 4th blanket, but I didn't bother to get a 4th blanket. So we'll work with 3 blankets. I have a couple of blocks. Also, we're going to do a little yin yoga today, and typically yin yoga, the pure yin yoga, or maybe I'm wrong here. I could be wrong, so don't take my word for everything. First rule of going to yoga class, don't take the teacher's word on everything. Find your own way. Typically, I wouldn't be using a whole lot of props, but there are a lot of poses that I can't get into personally, and having props often helps. So I'm going to sit on one blanket, and you can see how just sitting on one blanket, my knees are kind of higher than my hips. If I sit on a 2nd blanket, you'll see how that makes a difference for my body. Once again, you may be perfectly fine without anything underneath your bottom. When I sit on a 2nd blanket, you'll see how my knees lower quite a bit, and my hips come up a little bit more. And when your hips are a little bit higher than your knees, it makes it a lot more comfortable to sit in this kind of cross-legged position. Cross-legged position is often what you see a lot of yogis sit in, or sometimes it's not comfortable at all. So you can try, let me see what it feels like to sit with the other leg in front. Usually you'll find that to be more uncomfortable than the first one you chose. And then if this isn't comfortable at all, guess what? You don't have to do either cross-legged position. Just find what's comfortable for you. And then when you find a comfortable seated position, and that might be with the legs out, not on a blanket, maybe on 2, maybe on 1, just find a comfortable seated position that makes you feel space between the tailbone and the collarbone. The crown lifting, you can close the eyes or have a gentle gaze in front of you. Maybe even a smile on your face. And begin to just notice your breath. Notice the inhale, notice the exhale. No particular breathing pattern here. We're just feeling the breath moving in and out of the body. Yin is a very slow, gentle practice. And sometimes a slow and gentle practice is very appealing. But there are also others who find it to be extremely aggravating. And sometimes I think that people who are aggravated by the slow practice really need it the most, as difficult as that sounds. So I love a slow practice. That's all I do is a slow practice. I typically don't like to sweat at all. So if there's any sweating involved, I slow it down. So I'm kind of the different teacher, the teacher that isn't the vinyasa flow hot teacher. I'm the gentle, breathing, sensation awareness teacher. And I really do enjoy the class. Well, we'll make some modifications along the way. I'll give you a chance to see some differences. We'll throw a little what's seemingly restorative at the end. And sometimes we just need a prop to help us get there along the way. But the most important part of a yin practice is to be comfortable and not go into any kind of pain, never any pain. And my pose will look different than your pose. So the choice here is to feel sensation in your body and move into the pose till you find that level of comfortable sensation and hang out there and breathe. Let's practice Ujjayi breath. It's a breathing technique. Jai means victorious, victory. So it's the victorious breath. A lot of people also refer to it as ocean's breath because ocean's breath kind of sounds like the ocean. And the ocean, I don't know about you, but the ocean for me is very calming and focusing and feeling good. I love hearing the ocean. I'd like to be by the ocean right now. Someday soon. So ocean's breath can also quickly move into Darth Vader territory. And you don't want to sound like Darth Vader. You want a nice, gentle ocean breath. And here's how I describe how to do ocean's breath. It's similar to the sensation. I'm going to pretend my hand is a mirror. And I'm going to blow into the mirror with an open mouth, like this. That's the sound. Most notably on the exhale. At first, when you're practicing, you'll hear that ocean sound. Very similar to when you're fogging a mirror up. Now, the trick to do that when your mouth is closed is you will take the tongue to the roof of the mouth, or if you already can have the sensation of gently closing the back of the throat off. But often taking the tongue to the roof of the mouth helps at first. The mouth, lips are closed, and the breathing is done in and out through the nostrils. Now you'll hear the ocean on the exhale. Inhale. You may even notice the ocean on the inhales as well. And what you'll notice in this breathing technique is the breath becoming slower. Helping you to relax, be more focused. And what I would encourage you to do is in moments in life when life has you panicked, or your blood pressure rising, or a little bit off kilter. You don't even have to close your eyes while you're doing this, stuck in the longest line ever at the grocery store, or traffic, unending traffic. Just take the tongue to the roof of the mouth or slightly contract the back of the throat and breathe in and out through the nostrils and listen for the ocean sound. I brought out those daily life possibilities, but when we're doing yin, it can become a breath that can help you come back to the sensation and the feeling of the breath and not get lost in your thoughts, which is so easy to do. And it's so human. So we're going to begin the practice, as my mentor always taught me, with 3 poses. We'll start with butterfly, and then we'll move to Sphinx pose, and then we'll all move on to a twist, a nice simple twist on our back. We'll move with those 3 poses to begin with, and then we'll see where we go from there. We may just end after 3 poses. It's a good way to start the class because you have a forward bend, a back bend, and a twist. It's almost complete in itself, the first 3 poses. So we'll start by drawing the soles of the feet together, and the knees will bend and be out. And you'll notice I'm not trying to bring my feet all the way up to my torso. I'm actually making a nice generous diamond shape with my legs. Inhaling and lengthening as I fold forward here from the hips. I'm keeping length to my spine as I fold forward and coming into this just to the point of some gentle sensation that I might start to feel. Now your position may already be down at your feet, but this is where I'm at because I'm slowly moving in till I feel some sensation. I'm not trying to feel a sensation that is past my edge. Matter of fact, I never want to go past my edge. I want to start slow and then maybe go slower because we're going to be holding the pose for about 3 minutes. And then 3 minutes is a lot longer than you think, or may think. From here, if the back is healthy and you want to round your back and your shoulders, feel free. If the back has some concerns, feel free to keep the back, the spine elongated. I always recommend keeping the spine elongated if you have concerns in your back. You can still drop the head and neck if that's comfortable for you. I recommend it. And then come into your Ujjayi breath. It works so well in this position. And what you're going to start noticing is, well, if you're starting the Ujjayi breath, you'll notice the ocean. With each exhale, you may feel the body release a little bit more. It's also possible the body releases too much, too fast. As I said, you want to go slow and then go slower. At any time you're feeling you've got yourself into a place where you relaxed into the pose a little too much, you're feeling a little too much sensation, know that you can come up out of the pose very simply by walking the hands up and slowly walking yourself back in to that perfect place. And use the breath as your guide here to release and relax the body. You will notice, typically, after a minute or two, the body starts to relax into the pose and you'll deepen your expression. It's also quite possible that this is where thoughts start to creep into our awareness. Just thank yourself for the thought, whatever it may be, even the difficult thoughts, and come back to the breath. That's the practice. The thoughts will come. You'll notice that you're thinking. You'll give the thought gratitude. And you'll come back to that breathing and releasing and relaxing. And every time you notice your thinking and lovingly draw yourself back to the breath, it's that moment of present moment awareness. And you will know that you are now here. I am here in the present moment. And slowly walk yourself up once again from the pose, nice and gentle. Let the legs lengthen. Give them a little love. That was a deep stretch. When we're in these deep stretches and these deep, long holds, you're affecting the traditional Chinese medicine lines of the body. And you're compressing the lines. And when you release out of the pose, you release those energetic lines and they start to flow, releasing whatever was stuck along those lines. Very similar to a massage or acupuncture, if you've ever had either of those. Shiatsu, they all work along those energetic lines. Now we're going to come into Sphinx pose. I said next pose would be Sphinx pose. So we just did that forward fold, and now we're going to do a gentle back bend, okay? And so coming onto the belly, gently to start with, keeping the elbows under the shoulders. This may be a little challenging in the lower back region for some people, especially if you have sensitive lower back. If that's the case, you can walk the elbows a little bit away from the body, and that'll lower the body and shift how your sensation feels in the lower back. Still keeping the head and chest up. Another choice would be to fold at the elbows. Bring the forearms in front of you, forming almost like a tripod. And then feel the breath. As you inhale and exhale, you can feel the body getting a massage. The inhale expands the belly, pressing into the floor and then into the lower back, and then the exhale releases. So noticing that sensation of the breath is a good place to start. And then what you might notice is a loosening of the sensation you may have initially felt in the lower back. For those who are a little more flexible in the lower back and have the elbows directly under the shoulders and aren't feeling any sensation, there's a few things you could do. You could take a blanket or pillow, or even a block or two if you have blocks, and place your forearms a little bit higher up off the floor. That'll give you a deeper lower back sensation. The feet are relaxed, the legs are relaxed, and then just allow the chin to fall to the chest. And once again, you can tune into the breath. And I encourage you to check into the physical, emotional, and mental sensations that you may be experiencing. Not just a large sensation of that lower back, but perhaps you're feeling the coolness of the air on your skin, the tops of the feet resting on the floor. Maybe you feel a nice stretch if you have the head dropped. You may be feeling a nice stretch in between the shoulder blades. You may be feeling the material resting on the body. Tune into the large and small and in-between sensations. Once again, as we begin to stay in this position for a minute or two or three, you'll notice things shifting. And you may even notice sounds around you. And you may start to notice the mind wandering, like I heard you may have heard it too, the dryer buzzer or the voicemail going off, or maybe the dog is snoring. I don't know. Or maybe you have thoughts once again coming up for you as we're in this back bend, affecting the meridian lines. And once again, you have the choice to thank yourself for the thought and come back to the breath and the sensations you're feeling. Just to be aware of them. And after you hold a position for a minute or two, you might decide you want to shift the position, whether it means drawing something under the elbows or perhaps removing something from under the elbows. You make those calls to see what feels best for you. And then move back into the breath once you've made those adjustments. Now, as we come out of the pose, we'll just let the elbows come off to one side and the other. Make a pillow with the forearms and rest all the way down, resting the forehead on the forearms. And in this position, just notice the breath again and the back and the sensations. From here, we're just going to gently roll onto our back. Bend the knees, feet to the floor, comfortable position. Where are your shoulders? Where are your shoulders? Yes, I draw them down my back. It helps open up my shoulders, my heart, makes it actually easier for my back. Tuck the chin slightly, elongate the back of the neck. And then I'm just going to take the knees off to the right and stack them in a nice twist. Now the knees, as mine, may come apart from one another. Yours may be stacked one on top of the other. Yours may be open more than mine. If your knees are stacked right on top of one another and you're not feeling a lot of sensation on the left side of the body, which is the twist, you can draw the knees up closer to the head and that'll give you a little more sensation. You could also draw that left arm overhead behind you on the floor as long as at least one part of the hand or arm rests on the floor and as long as the shoulder is feeling happy. If it's feeling tight or tense, just bring the arm back. You don't want to do anything uncomfortable here. And if you also have the knees stacked and you want to deepen some sensation of the body, you can draw that right ankle on top of the left knee. And if you don't like that, don't do it. And then once you find that position where you're feeling a comfortable stretch, just hang out in it for a bit because it could shift and you might change your mind about the position you're in. It's okay to do that. And just feel the stretch on the side body. And come back to the breath. So we're training ourselves. When the thoughts come up for us, they will because it's a very gentle, slow practice. We're not busy thinking. Nice deep inhale and exhale, drawing yourself back to the present moment. If you're feeling a lot of sensation, which you may be in this twist, ask yourself, particularly on that exhale, to relax around the sensation you're feeling. Making your small little micro adjustments as you need to or want to. You're in charge of how much sensation you're feeling, and Make it a nice, comfortable sensation. There will always be distractions. How we choose to handle those distractions. How we choose to handle our physical, mental, emotional distractions. It definitely is our choice. Once again, after a minute or two, you might start to notice the sensations shifting. When I'm teaching a class, I'm also using a timer. And I have a clock here, so I'm kind of roughly going by my clock. And how I'm feeling. We're going to transition. So if the arm was out overhead, or if the legs were wrapped, unwrap them, bring the arm back. And then gently lift the knees up. And exhale them off to the other side. Once again, rearranging and noticing how one side feels quite different than the other. And finding that perfect expression where you're comfortable in the sensation. Whether it's drawing the right arm overhead behind you on the floor, or wrapping the left ankle on top of the right, or just leaving the knees stacked and the arm where it was in a T position. Just feel the breath and find that happy spot. And then once again, come back to the breath when thoughts occur lovingly. Come back to the awareness of the different levels of sensation you're feeling. And then notice the relaxation on the exhale. When you ask yourself to relax around the sensations you're feeling. Deep inhales and exhales, relaxing with each exhale, any sensation. And then once again, after a minute or two, if you're wanting to increase sensation, you have some options that you can change the position of the arm or the legs. You can change the level of sensation in your pose. It feels fabulous. Just these 3 simple poses. And if you join me for Yin, we begin every class with these 3 poses. And then we add another 1 or 2 in on top of that. Or 3, depending on what the rest of the class is structured like. Or your desires for a class when I do a group class live. Bringing the arm back to a T and unwrapping the legs if you've taken that route. And then inhale the knees back up. Hug them in, nice and wide. Maybe rock a little back and forth, left and right. Massage the lower back. A little bit of movement is really super good here. Whatever movement you're being drawn to, make it so. And bring the feet back to the floor. And let's end with a little restorative bridge pose. And you can do this with a blanket or pillow. So you could take a blanket, depending on your back and your sensitivities. You could also use a block. Most often I use a block, but some people don't like the height of the block. It's not comfortable for them. So there are choices, like a blanket. And maybe the block is hard and you don't like the hardness of the block. You can use a blanket, and you can actually use a big pillow. It looks like a big pillow if you have a big pillow. So this will give you height, but more comfort. Whichever you choose, you're going to walk the feet as close to your buttocks as possible. Lift the hips up, slide either the blanket or the block under your bottom, and sit on that height. Just a gentle back bend in a restorative fashion. What is the difference between yin and restorative? And quite often there will be these hybrids of yin and restorative classes where they're really doing restorative, because most restorative classes include props, a lot of props that will allow the body to just relax. It's feeling supported, and it's a fabulous practice. But it's a different modal or mode of yoga than yin. If you wanted to experiment with this bridge pose, you could think about maybe letting one leg go long on the floor, and if that feels good, let the other leg go long on the floor. It's very much like doing Sphinx pose, only on your back. It's not everyone's cup of tea if it doesn't feel good. Bend the knees and bring the feet back to the floor. And also, a lot of people love taking their legs up in the air for what I call it a supported shoulder stand. You could experiment with that as well. It just increases the blood flow and oxygen back to the brain. But the traditional pose would be with the knees bent and the feet on the floor, and just breathe and watch. Once again, those thoughts roll by like clouds. You're the great big blue sky, and those clouds are floating by. And when they start to get stuck, you just thank yourself for that thought and come back to the breath. To come up off of your structure, you just lift your hips up. Slowly remove the blanket or pillow or block that you have and come down very slowly, one vertebrae at a time. Then let your legs go long. The feet are comfortably floppy. The arms are by your side palms, resting up. The eyes are closed and you're breathing comfortably. This is Shavasana. And I will invite you to stay in Shavasana as long as you like. Yin feels to me like every pose is a mini meditation in action. Every pose gives us the time and space to watch our thoughts and come back to our breath in a loving and kind fashion, in a caring way. Unconditional love for ourselves. Connect with unconditional openness. When we sit down to meditate, we can connect with something unconditional, a state of mind, a basic environment that does not grasp or reject anything. Meditation is probably the only activity that doesn't add anything to the picture. Everything is allowed to come and go without further embellishment. Meditation is a totally non-violent, non-aggressive occupation, not filling the space, allowing for the possibility of connecting with unconditional openness. This provides the basis for real change. Now, once again, you can stay in Shavasana as long as you want. Just let the video run on its own and it'll stop. But when you are ready to come out of Shavasana, deepening the breath, feeling the breath moving in and out of the body, becoming more aware of the body physically lying on the floor and the sensation of the air surrounding you. And then maybe stretching as if awakening from a gentle sleep. Slowly rolling on to your right side, curling up into a fetal position. Taking several breaths here as the body realigns, readjusts, and the blood pressure evens. And then gently, very slowly, using the strength of your arms to draw yourself back to a comfortable seated position. Once again, only when you're ready to come out of Shavasana. Those are the steps you should take. Thank you for joining me for this little mini Yin session. I would love to have you join me for my Yin class cycles. Maybe a little bit of yin, a little bit of restorative. Check out my website for the dates and times for that. They change and shift depending on the feedback I get. And the website is eighthlimb.com. Namaste. The light in me honors the light in you. Have a beautiful day. Unconditional love.